Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptomancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Death Splinter, and really where I view the miscellaneous Chaos Legion cards from a tier perspective. I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video to the tier list itself so you can review that offline. And without further ado, let's hop into the tier list. So Death has definitely some S tier amazing cards that we want to talk about. And the first one I want to talk about is the Curse Wendigo. Now, the analysis that we're going to be doing today is based on the Gold League levels. So in this case, the Curse Wendigo is going to be at level 6. But I will say that in playing in Bronze and Silver, what you're going to find is that the Death team is a powerhouse in the Bronze and Silver leagues for climbing. And one of the main reasons for that is just the versatility of this card, the Cursed Wendigo with Thorns, at the Bronze and Silver level. It is a difference maker, and I would say definitely pay attention to Death at those levels because it's a very strong splinter, and you can definitely get some additional benefit if you're just using starter cards by using the Draco of Arnok on the dragon side to get his shield at the same cost of Thaddeus, and then bring a Death team with the Curse Wendigo and other kind of starter cards that are of strong value there. Things like the Silent Javi, a Death Elemental, or a Life Sapper. But this video is not really talking about the Silver or Bronze level, so let's hop into the tier analysis for the Curse Wendigo. So the Curse Wendigo here at 6 mana has 3 melee damage, 3 speed, and 11 health. And it has 2 fantastic abilities. 1, it has Thorns, and 2, it has Self-Heal at the gold level. So when you think of tanks for the Modern League formats, the Curse Wendigo is definitely, in my mind, at the top of the list there for tanks. It is just really flexible and all around really good. It really kind of is an upgrade to the Haunted Spirit as far as a self-healing tank for Death because it adds the Thorns in there. It doesn't have things like Magic Reflect, so it is a little vulnerable to magic attacks, but the self-heal and a large hit point pool certainly helps with that. Again, this is a fantastic card and a staple tank for the Death team. The second S tier card that I want to talk about is the Crypt Beetle, and again, this is also another super strong tank at the gold level for Death. Now this is really more of a specialization tank for low mana battles or maybe even mid mana battles. But what you're getting here is a tank that has 3 shields and 5 health with the shields ability. And this tank is very strong at the low to mid mana level. Its really only weakness is against magic-based attacks, but even then it has some decent health pool for 3 mana to rely upon. So again, this tank at the low mana is fantastic, and at gold level is a great value for 3 mana. The next S tier card I'd like to talk about is actually perhaps my favorite card of Chaos Legion for Death, and it's the Riftwing. And when you first look at this card, because it doesn't have an attack, you might think it's underwhelming, but do not underestimate this card. It is fantastic, and it's a powerhouse. So at level 8, you're getting 5 speed and 6 health with no attack on this card for 4 mana. So again, not overly impressive, but when you look at the abilities that this comes with at the gold level, you really start to see the full package and its utility here, because in addition to 5 speed, it's got flight, making it very elusive. It's got scavenge, which will certainly ramp up its health pool over the course of battle, and if placed in an off tank or snipe role, can give it some time to ramp up its health, for example, or you can put it at the tail end of your lineup to protect from sneak, and this is where the backfire ability here is super valuable. Whether you put it at the back end of your lineup with 5 speed and flight, or you put it in the off tank position for sniping and eventually an off tank role where it moves to the front, that backfire can be very, very dangerous and actually add some damage to this card quite quickly from a DPS perspective. And then last but not least, you've got the Headwinds ability to debuff the other team's archer units just as an extra added benefit. So this card for 4 mana is really, really good. You can pretty much find a way to use it in every team where it's going to add some value. And for 4 mana, if you can fit it in, it's going to be a positive EV for your death team. The last card I'd like to talk about in the S tier for death is the Silent Javi. The Silent Javi is a very nice DPS unit for the death team. And we'll see here its stats at gold level. You are going to get 3 melee damage with 6 speed, 7 health, with sneak and cripple for 5 mana. And again, those are great statistics. And if you were to compare this card with other Chaos Legion cards, what you would find as similar DPS cards would be the likes of the Tenny Striker on fire or the Deep Lurker on water. Similar types of roles, but slightly different stats and abilities. But definitely for 5 mana, here you've got good speed, good damage, good health, and the sneak ability. So this card plays a similar role to the Tenny Striker, right? It's got some ability to be evasive at the tail end of your lineup and take a few hits as well, and also provide sneak attack damage at quick speed. If we now go to the A tier, or the very good cards, I want to start with the Magi Necrozi. This is a very solid epic card for death. It's 6 mana, has 3 magic damage, 4 speed, and 6 health, so it's got really good stats all the way around. And then what really sets it apart is it has Snipe and Oppress, making it a very unique unit for death. Snipe magic is certainly very powerful, and then you have Oppress, which makes it even stronger. And then you've also got added survivability with the camouflage there, so you're really getting a good DPS unit that can provide a lot of pressure on units against your opponent that may not have any defense, obviously, against 3 magic damage, so it can really be effective attacking your opponent's weak characters. The next unit in the A tier list for death, in my opinion, is the Life Sapper. And if you look at the Life Sapper, at first glance, you might think that this is just a weaker version of the Venary Bonesmith for the death team. And on paper, it may look like that, but in actuality, the Life Sapper is quite good on its own merit. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's 3 mana, so it's very affordable. It's got 2 magic damage at the gold level with 4 speed and 3 health with Life Leech. And really, it doesn't have the benefit of poison like the Venary Bonesmith has, but you get that 2 magic damage at good speed with Life Leech at a reduced mana cost. So you can definitely pair this card up with a Venary Bonesmith and or an Ancient Lich in scenarios such as Equalizer, where it can really be a difference maker in those types of battles. And with the mana cost here and the versatility of Life Leech, I do think this card is a very good card, and it can definitely add value to your death teams on a regular basis. The next card is the Soul Strangler, and this card is interesting at gold. At the silver and bronze levels, I think it might struggle a little bit because its health pool is so low. But at the gold level, you get a little tick extra health. You get the 3 health, but you get that 4 archery damage. So it really becomes a glass cannon. And if you put it in a position on your team where it's hard for sneak and snipe to get to this unit right away, if it can have 2 or 3 turns of 4 archery damage of DPS for 3 mana, you can definitely get the value out of this card. You just have to use it strategically. It is certainly susceptible to opportunities still, but again, you can't really argue with 4 archery damage for 3 mana. Again, it is a glass cannon. If you realize it as such and play it as such, you'll do just fine. And this is why I think this card, because of its increased damage at gold, is worthy of an A tier rating at the gold level. The next A tier card I'd like to talk about is the Dampier Stalker. Let's take a look at this card at the gold level. The Dampier Stalker at gold is going to have, for 7 mana, 4 archery damage, 3 speed, 7 health. It's going to have True Strike, so anytime its 4 damage comes into play, it's going to definitely hit and not miss. And it's also going to have the Death Blow ability, which is not maybe as useful or commonly used, but you look at the raw stats on this card, and the reason why I like this card is similar to the Soul Strangler. That 4 archery damage is certainly very useful. You can put it at the back end of your lineup with 7 health and assume it's going to survive a turn or 2 usually and get off its attacks. So it's really good when you just need to bring some DPS to the battle. Similar to perhaps like the Octopider under the wild format, it provides heavy archery damage with decent health to kind of be placed at your back line. And sometimes when you have maybe a heavy magic-based damage death team, maybe you're running Venary Bonesmith and a Life Sapper, having some alternate damage in the form of archery here can be a lifesaver, because if your opponent brings out a Silence and a Void tank when you have those other units in place, it can really just put a roadblock to your path to victory. Having a Dampier Stalker in the back of your lineup can really help get rid of that tank in a reasonable amount of time and let your other units continue to do work. So that's why I like this card. It provides some versatility to the death team, and it is certainly worthy of inclusion at the A tier in my mind. The last A tier card here is no surprise to the series. It's the Corpse Fiend. It's the legendary 0-cost Fiend, and again, as we've mentioned in other videos, I view the Fiends, the 0-cost Fiends for all Splinters, to be pretty much a must-have unit if you're going to be competitive at the gold level. Now, if you look at the B tier, the decent cards, the average cards for this Splinter, we're going to start with the Shadow Snitch. The Shadow Snitch at gold is certainly a decent card. It is a 4 mana reach off tank with 3 melee damage, 4 speed, and 6 health with Affliction. Now, Affliction is certainly very strong. I love Affliction in the Chaos Legion meta because there's a lot of heals out there, and being able to stop heals is certainly important to every Splinter. You need to kind of have that in your back pocket. So this card is good for that purpose because it brings Affliction to the death team if you can't get it in other ways. So this is good. It's kind of borderline A tier. Again, I don't use Shadow Snitch a lot personally because I have other means to get Affliction on my death team. The reason why I rated it, for example, maybe a little bit lower than the Radiated Brute is Radiated Brute in certain circumstances can be pretty valuable, like under a Noxious Fume scenario where its Enrage can kick in right away and it can start doing some pretty serious damage. The Shadow Snitch is just solid damage with reach, good health pool, and Affliction. So again, just a decent card. certainly worthy of looking at leveling up in your Chaos Legion deck, just maybe not a #1 priority if you're on a budget. The next card at the B tier level is the Weirding Warrior. And the Weirding Warrior is going to be a 2 mana cost archer unit. Here, you're going to see its stats. 2 mana, it's got 2 archery damage, 3 speed, 3 health. It's got Shatter, and it's got Amplify. So this is certainly, for 2 mana, a good deal, right? 2 mana, 2 damage, great. Plus you get a Shatter ability, which is certainly useful. And you get Amplify. So why do I rate it as just a decent card? For me, the reason why is because if I'm using Amplify, I use personally with like my Ouster death team, I use the Venary Spellsmith. It's a little bit more mana and it's maybe not as much damage, but the reason why I do that is because it's just cheaper to get that Amplify from a dollar cost perspective than getting 32 BCX of an epic card here for the Weirding Warrior. That's the only reason I list the Weirding Warrior as a decent B tier card, is just because you're having to, the cost to get 32 BCX at gold level is going to be, over $34, $35. So it's a pretty expensive 2 mana cost card when compared to other Chaos Legion cards that offer maybe similar utility. That's really the only reason. From a pure stat perspective, you can certainly make the argument that this 2 mana card could be an A tier card. The only reason for me that I list it as a B tier is just because the cost of the card versus the value that it provides to your team. The last B tier card I want to talk about here is going to be the Insidious Warlock. Let's take a look at the Insidious Warlock. The Insidious Warlock is a 5 mana epic. It's got 2 magic damage, 6 health. It's a little slow at 2 speed, but it doesn't matter because it's got magic damage. It's got the recharge ability, and we kind of know how we feel about recharge. It's a little unreliable as far as getting the value here. You're going to get 6 magic damage every other turn from this card, which is fine when you hit a creature that's has 6 health or more, and you get the value there. Sometimes you'll do 6 magic damage every other turn and snipe something that maybe only has 1 or 2 health. In that regard, you're probably not getting max value there, and that's why I think the recharge units are a little unreliable, and you want to have consistency in your lineup usually when you play Splinterlands, just so you know what to expect. And that's why I'm not a super fan of recharge in the current meta. It does have the blind ability, which is a nice ability as well at the gold level, but I can't say that I would play this card frequently in its current format. So if we look at the C tier or the meh cards, here I'm listing the Carrion Shade as that one of those cards, and here's my reasoning behind it. Again, it's a 1 mana card, so you can't expect the world from it. But if you were to level this up to max gold level, you're going to get 2 melee damage with 3 speed, 2 health, and flight. Again, these 1 mana cost cards are limited to kind of niche scenarios where you might have Equalizer as a battle type, or melee attack from any position, or super sneak or opportunity. Again, they're kind of situational uses. The only reason I list the Carrion Shade here as a C tier instead of a trash tier is because it has reasonable speed at 3 speed with flight, so you can, in a pinch, move this card to the back of your lineup to protect a little against sneak. Maybe get 1 or 2 dodges out of it before it goes away. So in that case, the 1 mana cost is not a terrible waste on your team. That's the only reason I list it as a C tier card versus a trash card. Again, it's situational usage at best. So the next card in the C tier for me is Jinmurat, And Jinmurat is a 9 mana legendary card at the gold level. And here, I might have a little bit of a controversial view on Jinmurat. I'm just not a fan of this card. Its stats at 9 mana for a legendary card are 3 magic damage, 2 speed, 4 shield, 8 health. It's got void armor, so you're going to have to basically get through 12 total durability before you get rid of this card, which is fine. I mean, in most cases, I would say Legionnaire Alvar is maybe a suitable option as well. It's got knockout, so if you have a scenario with the knockout ability, it's going to be definitely a niche card for that. In those scenarios, you definitely would want to consider Jinmurat for that mission scenario, just because you're getting 6 magic damage under that scenario condition if you get a stun off, which is good. It's got the giant killer ability, again, situational, not always going to be used, in which case this is going to do 6 damage against monsters on your opponent's team with 10 or more mana. And then it's got magic reflect here as well. Certainly useful for a void armor tank, because you're assuming you're using it because you're going against a magic based team. For me, for a lesser cost, I might look at a Bone Golem at the gold level with Void and Repair for more versatility. I guess the reason why I believe Jinmurat to be a C tier card is just from a legendary perspective. It's a situational kit in my mind, where I'd probably find other cards that I'd rather use than Jinmurat in most cases. And then the cost here for this legendary card, if I want to max them out at 6 BCX again, it's going to cost $45 or more to get this card at the gold level. And just from a legendary perspective, if I was on a budget, this would probably be one of the last legendary cards that I would level up, just because I would rather much level up something more useful and something I would use more frequently from a legendary perspective. Just my opinion. I'm sure there's others that would have different opinions on this card. Now, if we're going to talk about the legendary airdrop, I can't include the legendary airdrop on the tier list currently just because I don't have the image. But if I were, I would make Lira the Dark, which is a legendary death airdrop, here as an S tier card. And Lira the Dark is very good for a couple reasons versus maybe her released counterpart of Iza on the Earth team. The reason why I like Lira is at 7 mana, you're getting 3 archery damage, but you're getting 6 speed with 6 health. And the 6 speed with the opportunity and the swiftness, putting all of that together, you have a very fast attacker that can strike your weakest opponent on your enemy first. You're adding swiftness to your entire team, and we all know how valuable swiftness or slow is in the Chaos Legion meta. So for that reason, it's definitely a very useful card. The snare is just kind of a nice bonus that may be situational and used, from time to time in certain scenarios, but not certainly the most valuable skill. But again, opportunity with the speed, with the swiftness, and the 3 archery damage, I think it's a great combination. I think Lira is very strong. I use her a lot with my death team. She's kind of like a poor person's dragon jumper for Chaos Legion, in the fact that she's fast and she has opportunity. So for that reason, if you can get Lira currently, for $6, I think that's a pretty good deal. Again, I like this card, and I think it's a good S tier card for death. So if we were going to talk about the Chaos Legion reward cards as well from a tier listing perspective, the first one we want to talk about is the Acolyte Deceiver. The Acolyte Deceiver at the gold level is going to be a 5 mana cost, 3 melee damage, 4 speed with flight, 10 health with backfire. And for me, this card is decent. I would rate it at a B tier. It's a decent card. There'll be times when I want to use it because of its flight in earthquake scenarios, or maybe a back to basics where that 5 mana cost with 10 health is a pretty good bargain. But generally speaking, I'm probably going to look at using other tanks for death. Again, it has a niche play where you can use it to defend against sneak at the back of your lineup with the 4 speed and the flight and the backfire and the decent health. If you have a rule set where you have super sneak or melee attack from any position or opportunity again, those would be scenarios where you can consider using the Acolyte Deceiver at the back end of your lineup. So for that reason, again, I rate it as a decent card. It's not going to be my first choice to take into battle, but it definitely has its use cases and its scenarios where it is valuable. The next reward card to discuss is the Venary Bonesmith. Now, the Venary Bonesmith is a 4 mana, 2 magic attack damage, 4 speed, and 4 health. It has Life Leech and Poison at the gold level. And for me, I really enjoy the Venary Bonesmith. I rate this as an S tier. I use this card pretty frequently in my death teams. I just like cards that have the poison ability, so things like Uraeus, the Silver Shield Assassin, and other cards like the Deep Lurker. I like the poison ability. I think it's very valuable. And at 4 mana to get Life Leech with 2 magic damage, I think this is a great value. And this is why I rate it as an S tier, and I use it quite frequently. The last card to talk about for death is the Heartclaw, the Chaos Legendary Reward card. It's an 8 mana card. It's 2 melee damage, 2 speed, 3 shield, 9 health. It's got the shield ability with immunity and with demoralize. And here, I was a little torn. For me, I don't use this card a ton, but I will say that I have to kind of rate it as an A tier card. It's borderline for me. I could see it being rated as a high B tier, but I do think its utility is quite solid. You've got the shield for the tank. You've got a total durability pool there of 12 with the shield and the health. The demoralize and the shield to me is what makes this card an A tier, kind of a lower A tier card, because if used properly, with the right opponent, like if you're going against a Kelia team and you have this unit up front and maybe they don't have a lot of magic that they're bringing, if you can bring a Heartclaw with shield and demoralize and bring another demoralize there with Heartclaw, you can pretty much win the battle by default just with that combination potentially. So for that reason, the combination of shield and demoralize and the ability to stack that, I think the Heartclaw is underrated. It's not used maybe a lot in the meta today, but I think it could definitely find its way there in the future. Maybe some other cards are released for death. Again, also the immunity is very good for Noxious Fume battles. And in the future, if you're battling another death team that may have the Waka Summoner, for example, you'll appreciate immunity on your Heartclaw at that point in time. So for me, I rate it as a low A tier card, borderline B tier, but I give it the nod just because I could see it being more useful in the future. And even now, it's still solid, just maybe not utilized as much in the current meta as it may be in the future. So there you have it, my analysis and take on the Chaos Legion Death Splinter. Hopefully this has been beneficial for you. If it has, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for more timely content around Splinterlands, and leave your comments in the video below so I can see what you think. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know. Let's have the conversation. And until next time, keep stacking those stats.
That's entertainment.